3, 2. Welcome to the Greg Simoneau Show, taping to you live from a golf course near you. Here's Greg Simoneau. All right, thank you. Thanks. I would like to thank the local scene for having me. Thank you very much. Okay, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank Dan and Mikhaela in the booth. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. All right. Thanks for your help, Dan and Mikhaela. It is episode 59 of the Greg Simoneau Show. Enjoy the show. All right. So the other day I was coming out of the shower, and I don't usually use this bathrobe, right? And it's hanging there. And I pick it up, and there's a little dead spider and a little cobweb there. And I was like, "Aw, he probably hit on me a while ago, thinking this would be a perfect way to scare Greg, This will be the best way. I'll just jump out and scare him." And I don't use this robe that much. It just died of old age in there. And when I lifted it up, it wasn't like I had to clean anything up. It just blew away like they do. I was like, "Aw, he probably was going to scare the bejesus out of me, if he ever got the chance." He just hid there, and I didn't use it as quickly as he thought. And that was the dead spider I found. Yeah. My bathrobe is so old, I don't even remember the robe store I bought it at, It probably doesn't exist anymore because who can survive selling only robes? Mix in some bar soaps by the registers. Come on, impulse buys, add-on sales. I don't even know how many sink moments I had and didn't go for my robe. The whole time that little spider was hiding under there. I imagine a lot of sink moments, probably thousands. Yeah. Sometimes I have to take a really hard look in the mirror, really get a good look at myself and say to myself, it's time for a shave. That's what I say. And sometimes I wonder what I would have said if that spider was alive, Would I have said, "Oh, a spider"? Or would I have been more cool and calm and said, "Babe, can you grab me my robe?" Yeah. The other day, me and my friends were talking. I said, do tell us what you want to say." And I thought, that was really weird to say. And sometimes you can say, "Do pray tell." Do, then pray, and then tell. Or just skip the doing and the praying and get to the telling. That's what we really want, right? Such a weird little turn of phrase, I think. So I was sitting in this recliner the other day, And you know how recliners have gotten really fancy lately? Well, this one, the arm didn't lift up for extra storage. And I was like, what is this? This is like an old recliner. The arms don't even lift up for storage? Where do you put your remote control, and snacks and stuff? Where do you do that? Then I looked at the bottom and right along the side of the recliner. It was like a big apron-y thing, just like a big pocket. And it's just kind of wrinkly, And I was like, how old is this recliner? That pocket was like a wrinkly old man's chin, just like, Arr. And I was like, old wrinkly mouth on the side where you feed your TV guides to. Is that wrinkly mouth, that's where your TV guides go? Is that made of leather? I don't know, it's pleather. So I was really surprised. I was like, what a jip. What a jip. And I went out and got a pizza the other day. And sometimes I go out for a pizza dinner. And I'm like, who calls it a pizza dinner? Why does everyone shorten it to pizza? And it was at a pizza place where you could sit down and eat it. And I thought to myself, you know what would make this great? A little bit of Parmesan cheese. So I asked them for some, and they give you a little cup, you know? It really isn't enough. It's like, what's the big deal here, you know? Why are you skimping on the Parmesan? I thought this was a good pizza place, but now you skimp on the Parmesan, and I'm like, how cheap are you? What else are you skimping on so much? Oh, can I have like 2 of these little cups of Parmesan, or is it 1 cup per customer? I don't know. So you know what I did? I licked it all up, and I threw the little cup back at them. That's what I think of you. Excuse you, sir. Skimping on the Parmesan. Skimped on it. Can I have some Parmesan? Can I have some Parmesan? Sometimes I practice that in a mirror so I can practice being grateful, you know. Then when they skimp on it, I can still act grateful, you know. I'm grateful for a graded cupful. That's what I like to say. And I try to build up that little cup of Parmesan. I say to it, you are enough for 1 piece of crust. You know. This pizza place was so cheap, the pizza didn't come with one of those little plastic tables in the box, you know? Nope, they used those as the tables in the pizza joint for people to sit at, you know? And that's being cheap and weirdly small. You know, the other day I was going through some stuff and I found an old birthday card from my grandmother. Yeah. And inside it said, "Your life is a blessing and so are you. Happy birthday, love, Grammy." I was like, really, Grammy? Am I a blessing? Sheesh. Happy birthday. But am I a blessing? God bless you. If I'm such a blessing, how come you don't say my name before dinner, you know? Does anyone want to say the blessing? Oh, okay, I will. Greg Simoneau. Amen. Let's eat. It's just a weird way to interpret that card. You know? So I go for walks, and once in a while, when I'm on a walk, sometimes I have to make a short jump, you know? And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. There's risk involved. How far am I going to have to jump, you know? I shouldn't have eaten so much Parmesan, you know? I'm not really in the mood to jump. I don't mind driving to a place, but I don't want to have to, you know, get out and make a short jump. So, to anything. If I'm out on a walk, I always think, I hope I don't have to make a jump at some point. Sometimes when I'm driving my car, I wish that my car could jump, you know? I wish I could jump over this roadkill, you know? I just hate to mush it back into the ground. But that's someone else's dinner. I guess I'll tenderize it for them, you know? We don't need flying cars. We need jumping cars. And someone's going to see this in 100 years and say, man, that dude was right. I was driving in the rain the other day, and I saw some bubbles in the puddles. The puddles were bubbling. Good name for a comedy album, I think. Greg Simoneau. The puddles were bubbling. So I saw these puddles, and I saw these bubbles, and I was like, wow, what's with all these bubbles? Is that normal? You don't usually see the puddles bubble. Must have been some really thick drops. And what makes a drop thick? Probably its bottom. So I just wanted to mention this. It's that time of year again. Time for Boston Bruins hockey in the Boston Bruins Fan Fest tour. Yeah, I was at it. I got a couple of autographs. And I never know what to do, you know. The players want to autograph stuff for you, you know. It's a small reason to become famous. So they like to do it, and they want to give you their autograph, you know. And I like to bring some cards for them to sign, you know. But I never know what to say while they're doing the autograph. So this is what I said. I said, oh, I just dug those out of my basement. I was hoping you'd be here. Because that's the big thing with FanFest. It's a mystery which Bruins guests will be there for autographs and pictures, you know. And the girl who was his handler, she said, "Oh, wow, how long have you had those?" Well, they are cards from the 90s, so I said, "Oh, about 30 years." You know. And the player said, "Hey, come on." It's like an old player, you know. So I changed my answer. I was like, about 10 years. And he nodded in approval, like, yeah, like that. And they came out pretty good. A nice signature in blue Sharpie on my hockey cards. I'm pretty happy about it. And then I got to thinking, you know, who thought signatures would be like a good thing to collect? When did autographs first become a thing, you know? Like that's a souvenir. Someone writing their name, you know. Every autograph is different. Every name is different. People don't even write out their names anymore. You're lucky if you get 2 recognizable letters amidst all the scribbles. How did that start? So I was thinking to myself, I guess you had to sign the Declaration of Independence, and then someone there probably liked that, but couldn't have that document, you know, so it's kind of important, you know. So he probably said, hey, why don't you sign this? And then the autograph was born. I guess that's probably where it started. I've given some out in my time, you know, but I usually have to force the people to take them. Like, here, take this. Then I was in Savers the other day, and I bought a Star Wars book. And I always like to look at the first couple of pages and see if the author signed this copy, and he did. It was a signed copy I found at the local thrift store. I thought that was pretty neat. Even the person at the checkout thought it was pretty neat. Yeah, we're both super nerds, but I was like, authors love to sign their books. So that's a pro tip. So I used to play golf. I haven't gotten around to playing much golf this summer, but it's such a treat. And I wouldn't mind being invited to play golf, but I'm not sure I want to do the work when I'm out there golfing, you know, hacking away in the sand traps, looking for my ball in the woods, you know, being hundreds of yards away from the golf cart and my beer, you know, getting weird pains in my back and my arm, my legs. Why does my neck hurt, you know, asking myself all these weird questions. When did my hands start bleeding, you know, stuff like that. Where did my 7-iron go? I don't know. Or like, I really need a new golf glove, you know, something like that. Maybe it's this one. Sometimes I'm like, how long has this granola bar been in there? I used to play with this foursome. I was in it. But now 2 of the 4 of us have died. Luckily, one wasn't me. So the 2 older fellows have since passed. And it was projecting that way 20 years ago. You know, they were the oldest. They probably had only 15 good years left. Well, 15 years left. They just grew old and died. We knew it would happen, you know. I was the youngest. The other lady was the 3rd youngest. And the other 2 died. So now we could keep up the tradition and just go out the 2 of us, but me and this lady, we don't really talk anymore, you know. And I think we always knew it would come down to that. You know, when you're 30 and your golf partners are 70, the math doesn't work, you know. Now I'm almost 50 and they're no longer around, let alone golfing. So they're golfing in the great beyond. I would like to thank my old golf partners, and I would like them to come back as zombies for one final round, you know? Let's do it. I wonder if there would be much of a difference. They were kind of like zombies when we last played. I would ask them, what'd you get? They'd be like, in a zombie voice, put me down for a 5. And one time at a Halloween golf tournament, I thought I saw my old zombie golf buddies there. And then I got real suspicious when they turned in the lowest score. And then I saw them eating the prime rib. Like, whoa, this must be them. Yeah, but then I knew it wasn't them because neither of these zombies were smoking cigarettes. It wasn't them. That makes me think. Sometimes I'll visit a cemetery or a gravesite or whatever, and there'll be a water feature, like a nearby pond, a bubbling brook, a drainage area, and I always think, there's something in that water, I'm not saying there's a dead body in there, but definitely decay runoff that's made its way in there. And there could be a dead body, another one, other than the ones already marked as dead in the cemetery, And that would be convenient, though, to be murdered so close to where one will be buried, provided they have a plot already, So basically, cross-reference who has an open plot and any missing persons, and you have your John Doe. But I only like cemeteries in scary movies or in murder shows. And especially when they exhume the body to find the clues to old cold cases. Usually that does it for the killer. Their DNA is all over that old body, and boom, you have yourself a conviction. And I also have always wondered, what does the coffin interior look like after a long period of time, Has the satin held up in there? Is the satin removed before the burial? Do the morticians skimp on the satin and reuse it for the wake only? Are there satin skimpers in this scenario? Can I have a little more satin? Then they hand me a sample in a small cup, like at a trade show, and I eat that sample and I throw the cup back at them in their face. How long does satin last? How long does today's satin last compared to satin of yesteryear? I don't know. And is coffin satin the same as the satin you'd find in a satin dress? Very crazy. Hey. My local golf club is great, though, You can sometimes catch me there some years, other than this one, I once saw the club champion there, and that was a thrill. And I could tell he plays a lot because his pockets were full of those small pencils, And, I hate when I can't get a tee time on Sunday morning, Haven't these other golfers heard of church? Come on. And the water hazards are so bad at my golf course. They sell snorkeling equipment in the pro shop, in case you want to go looking for your ball. Yeah. When it's evident my golf buddy is going to lose the round, he always rushes the last few holes, He wants to take his chances at the meat raffle down the street. And I'll usually join him. I think it's like 5 tickets for $20. Yeah. My golf buddy wanted me to paint a mural in his foyer and paint Tiger Woods in it. And I said, if I did that, that would be the closest you'd ever come to having a tour championship. Would be that painting right there. Yeah. I always pick my buddy up before golf, and he's always doing something to make us late. He's usually cleaning his balls, cleaning his bag, or cleaning his ball bags. And when we reach the turn at hole number 9, we always go in for a hot dog and a beer, And sometimes the group behind us skips over us, and I don't think that's fair. Just because we like to chat up the waitress in the clubhouse doesn't mean we should have to play behind some slowpokes. I remember once there was this real handsome golfer, and he always talked to us, and we were so impressed with him, We used to say to each other, man, he could get any girl in the clubhouse if he wanted. That was so long ago. I wonder whatever happened to him. Oh, yeah. He got that girl that worked behind the bar pregnant. Someone in the locker room, they asked me if I had spikes, and he always asked me if I had a condom. So I wonder what would have happened if I did give him a condom that time. So someone asked me if I had spikes, and I said I usually don't style my hair, but if I did, I would probably go with a more conservative look. Then they said, "What's your handicap?" And I said, "Well, I overthink things and I have a compulsive disorder." It's a thinker, yeah. The greenskeeper, sometimes he's so far away and he's making all these movements, it's hard to tell what he's saying, At one time I thought he was signaling that the group ahead of us was a group of dancers from the strip club up the street. That's what I thought he was doing. And I was like, yeah, I would like to meet them, but let me play this hole first. Yeah, we kept running into the greenskeeper, and I couldn't understand him. So I asked my buddy, is he dancing or is he making fun of us because you keep holding my hips when I swing? I don't know. Still haven't figured that one out. Yeah, and one time there was a lightning warning, and the greenskeeper picked us up in a golf cart and drove us in because we were walking that day. And then we got free passes to play another day. And that was the only time that ever happened in all my years of golfing. So that's very rare, That, I would say, is as rare as being struck by lightning. I hit one near the greenskeeper one time, and I think he ran over my ball. Yeah, it had a nick in it, But what was more telling was that he mowed the words "ha ha" in the grass. Yeah. It's golf etiquette to stop when someone else is swinging as you pass, another tee. And I like to do it. It's good etiquette. And I love watching people mess up, Then I like to slowly walk away to just enough to hear their excuses fill the air. Get some good tips. A lot of the people on the golf course stop and watch me play. And I don't know if it's because I'm so good or that if my tight pants are revealing a bulge from the bag of tees in my pocket. I don't know, that could be drawing some looks. And people love to watch me putt. And I always miss when they watch. And it's not because of the added pressure. It's more that putting is really hard. I used to love to watch my grampy putt. I would try to learn as much as I could from him, He would meander around his tool shed, looking at things, dusting things off, fixing things. Yeah, that man could really putt around. Few people realize the cost of golf. One season, it cost me thousands of dollars and one Achilles tendon. What's the cost? Yeah, me and my golf buddy we would pay alternating weeks. 1 week he'd pay for both our greens fees. The next week I'd pay for both our greens fees. And the last week I didn't show up, so I won. This one golf course we played at was the most I ever paid for golf. The caveat was that you could play with Tiger Woods. Well, Tiger was injured, so we played around with his ex-wife, Elin Nordegren. She doesn't really play, so actually she has a strong aversion to the sport, but it was nice for that amount of money for me and my buddies to shoot our shot. She whispered to me she'd be into foreplay, She'd yell "four" and try to hit us with her ball, And I told her I'd rather stroke play. But at golf tournaments, nothing beats the steak you get after that round, right? It's probably the best thing ever. It's probably all gristle, but I'm usually too plastered to notice, And they also give away little mementos after the dinner. I remember one tournament, I came home with a koozie with the tournament name and date on it, and also tons of frustration. Yeah, they always have an attractive girl selling raffle tickets at these tournaments at one of the holes. Sometimes it's $5 for closest to the hole. And I felt pretty good last time when I gave her the money that I was closest to the whore. No. And as it turned out, I got nowhere near her hole. The day before a tournament, I like to get ready. I usually give my balls a good washing. I probably worked all day and they can get pretty sweaty, Sometimes there's a debate on whether my company should even enter the tournament. It's usually for a good cause, but objections are like, why should we pay for their day of fun? So we saved money on the golf, but we spent more at the bar waiting for those steaks to come out. Where are these steaks? Yeah. I like winning prizes at these tournaments, I once won a Michelob Light cooler. I cherish that thing. I'm too embarrassed to bring it anywhere, like out in public. But man, does it look good in my garage. Don't ask me about my sponsors. Don't ask me about my sponsors. Oh, thank you, Plymouth. I'd like to tell you that you can catch me in the upcoming film Golf Wars 2000. Yep, where the raffle girl / bartender will be played by the attractive, hilarious, talented Florence Pugh. And the grumpy old greenskeeper will be played by, you guessed it, Kingston's own Chris Cooper. Thank you. Good night. All right. Now I'd just like to bring out Dan in the booth, who's been with us for countless episodes, and tonight was his last episode with us. Thanks, Dan.
It was a lot of fun.